Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari. I represent Phoenix, Glendale, and Guadalupe in the U.S. House of Representatives. Today, we are gathered here to demand better conditions at ICE facilities across the United States. And specifically, I'm here to advocate for immediate medical care for my constituent, Yari. This past Saturday, I conducted my second visit to the Eloy Detention Center, an ICE facility owned and run by Core Civic in Arizona. Core Civic is a private prison company that donated to Donald Trump's campaign. In turn, he's contracted with them and groups like them that also donated to run these facilities. It should be clear to all of us that a few people that donated to Donald Trump, are profiting wildly to torture other people. And not just anyone, but the most vulnerable among us. This was not my first visit to Eloy. The last time I was there was May 29th, and the things that I heard were horrifying to say the least. Women were forced to march in blistering Arizona sun while somebody on staff yelled at them, quote, "This is the price of the American dream." Air conditioning turned off and blasted at full strength, making women sick. Medical conditions completely ignored, not to mention the legal benefits that are available to detainees. Following my last visit, I sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Acting Director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Todd Lyons, detailing my deep concerns about the inhumane conditions within the center, demanding answers and independent oversight. I requested a response by June 23rd and did not hear back until the very last day of July. Even then, DHS outright denied things that I heard directly from the women who were detained. In July, I attempted to return to the facility to meet with my constituents, but less than 24 hours in advance, pre-approved constituent meetings were canceled by ICE with no reason provided. So I went back this weekend to check on my constituents, including a woman who has leukemia and is not receiving adequate medical care. What I heard from these individuals, 98 people who volunteered to speak with us, was completely bone-chilling. That's right, 98 people who could now face retaliation wanted to share their stories with me and my team. When we started speaking to them, women described being forced to melt ice for water because the water they're given has chlorine in it, giving them rashes all over their bodies. They shared stories about being issued used underwear, which is giving them UTIs. But perhaps no story I heard was more gutting than that of our Bella Rodriguez Marquez, who goes by Yari. Yari was diagnosed with cancer over 10 years ago and has not been able to see a specialist since she was detained in February. She is coughing up blood, too weak to stand, experiencing numbing, and has lost 55 pounds. She spoke to us in tears, begging to see an oncologist, and telling us that the detention center will merely give her Tylenol and stomach ulcer medication for cancer. Today, I am using my voice to demand immediate medical attention, and I'm talking about specialized medical attention from an oncologist for Yari. She cannot wait one more day to receive the fair and humane treatment that she deserves. And I'm doing everything I can to help secure that, including writing directly to ICE and sharing the literal medical records that Yari's loved ones have shared with us to show them just how sick she truly is. Today, I am so glad that others have joined voices with mine to speak on the conditions that they too have seen, and to call on ICE, on DHS, and on this corrupt Trump administration to stop turning away from people like Yari who are suffering and dying in U.S. government custody. With that, it is my honor to introduce Hadi Gassama of the American Civil Liberties Union.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, really for your leadership on this issue and for the opportunity to speak again about this very, very timely issue. I mean, we're here today because we're seeing a very disturbing and growing pattern, which is the expansion of this country's immigration detention system into increasingly remote, unregulated, and inhumane spaces. These are spaces where abuse thrives in the shadows and where oversight is intentionally obstructed. So like facilities like the Everglades Detention Facility, which is also dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, are opened hastily without any sort of proper environmental review, due process protections, or basic standards of care. And they represent a dangerous turn in how this country handles immigration enforcement. We're talking about tent facilities, camps built in isolated swamps, staffed with under-trained personnel operating under very questionable legal authority, detaining people in extreme heat, unsanitary conditions, as the Congresswoman mentioned, with little to no adequate medical care, and total isolation from their families, loved ones, and legal counsel. We've also seen proposals, and in some cases, the actual use of military bases for these detention camps, similar to sites like the Fort Bliss facility in El Paso, Texas. Let's be clear. Military installations like Fort Bliss and others that I'm sure are soon to follow are not equipped or designed to function as civil detention centers. Placing people, many of whom are asylum seekers, DACA recipients, former parolees, TPS holders, and other vulnerable populations in these tent camps is not only inappropriate, it's inhumane. It evokes some of the darkest parts of this country's history, like when we locked up Japanese Americans in internment camps, or when we caged children, which we're still doing, by the way. The things happening in places like Arizona, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, and so many more are all part of a broader effort to expand detention infrastructure while limiting transparency. The use of state-run facilities in particular under 287G agreements, or the expansion of these tent camps in collaboration with private prison companies, are all deliberate attempts to bypass federal standards, dodge public accountability, and cut off access to many of the safeguards needed for any kind of civil and human rights, such as access to attorneys, again, loved ones, journalists, medical care, and certainly members of Congress. Let me be absolutely clear. Congress has the legal and moral responsibility to exercise oversight over these facilities. Just a few months ago, right back there, Congress passed their reconciliation package, which allocated $45 billion for detention expansion alone. That's billion with a B. $45 billion for detention expansion. So we need to follow that money. We must continue to ensure that those dollars that could have been used to house people, provide better sources of education, provide medical care, aren't used to cage people in unsanitary, unsafe, and secretive conditions that violate federal standards and basic human decency. Transparency in these facilities cannot be optional. Immigration enforcement should not mean detention at all costs. And it certainly should not mean detaining people in tents, in swamps, or military bases, or behind razor wire facilities miles away from the nearest town. We must stop normalizing this type of cruelty, and we must remind every agency and every private contractor involved that these places are not black sites or black holes. Our communities are watching. Congress is watching. and we won't look away. Thank you. And I'll pass it over back to you for questions.
Thank you, Hadi. I want to close actually by sharing a statement from Yari's best friend and somebody who has been her primary advocate throughout this process. Arbella Rodriguez Marquez has been detained in Eloy Detention Center in Arizona for almost 7 months with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, symptoms like extreme weight loss, dizziness, weakness, fatigue, abdominal pain, vomiting blood clots, blotches, and constant headaches. I have witnessed many of these symptoms with my own eyes during my visits. Week after week, I see her health deteriorating. Eloy Detention Center is not equipped to treat Arbella. They deny the seriousness of her symptoms and offer only Band-Aid fixes instead of specialist care and proper medical facility she urgently needs. Her friends and community fear that if she is not liberated soon, she will lose her life. I fear I will lose my best friend. We call on our political leaders to act now and save Yari's life. Help us demand that Eloy Detention Center allow a specialist to enter to provide the proper diagnosis and treatment. Please help us save her life. These words are hard to read, but they're important to hear. Yari is literally dying in ICE care, and many more like her must be dying across the United States. I am demanding immediate medical intervention for Yari and for humane treatment at ICE facilities across the United States. Yari must be able to see an oncologist before it is too late. Again, I want to thank the ACLU for standing with me. Our fight has just begun. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You were referring to those in detention as your constituents. Do you view even those with absolutely no form of legal status at all as your constituents as well?
So I didn't realize this was such a controversy until the right-wing media started attacking me for using the word. So I Googled the word constituent. The definition of constituent is somebody who is part of a community. Doesn't matter what their legal status is. If somebody is an asylum seeker, if somebody has a green card, if somebody is a U.S. citizen, if somebody lives in the community, I represent them. Constituent does not mean voter. I don't care if none of these individuals can vote for me. I don't give a shit. I care about making sure that the United States government, with our taxpayer dollars, is treating human beings with dignity and respect. So yes.
Is there no law in this country, no international law about those kind of conditions? We're seeing that.
That is a great question. We, on the legislative front, are working on legislation, but no, there's really no real accountability or real standards for these detention centers. The problem, in my view, is that these are detention facilities run by private companies. So the $40 billion that was referenced in the reconciliation bill that is now going towards detention center expansion, companies like CoreCivic and Geo Group will be making record profits. They already have been. Since Donald Trump was inaugurated this year on January 20th, they made record profits. They openly, when he was elected, openly talk about, and there's many quotes from CEOs, chairmen of the board, that this is now an unprecedented opportunity for us because they know they're about to make billions. And I believe and have seen with my own eyes and heard from the testimony from these women that the companies, of course, like many major corporations do, take as much that they can in profits and sacrifice basic dignity and respect for the people being detained. I don't think it's asking too much to have 24/7 access to clean drinking water in an ICE detention center. That should be the bare minimum, but that's not happening. I don't think it's too much to ask to say that AC should be running at an appropriate degree during Arizona summers. I don't think it's too much to ask to say that if somebody has leukemia, they should be immediately sent to a hospital outside of the facility to see an oncologist. But I think that companies like Core Civic choose to make more money as opposed to doing the right thing. I'm sorry? I'm not aware, but we can get back to you on that. I'm vehemently against it. Unfortunately, I think things are going to get much, much worse than they are today with the $40 billion in expansion funding and the lack of accountability. It's really devastating to hear that that there is going to be new facilities built. I will do everything I can to make sure there's no expansion in Arizona, but this is going to keep happening. Donald Trump and his administration and predominantly Stephen Miller, who is the chief architect of these disgusting policies, have a quota, I believe, of 3 million per year that they want to deport. And to meet those quotas, the detention center capacity at this point, it's not enough. And so what they want to do is go from 40,000 beds across the country, or capacity for 40,000, to 100,000. And that's exactly what's happening with this new facility and others that are in the works. And I just want to expand on that a little bit to say that when you have quotas that are not based in any sort of reality, I mean, when Donald Trump has said, of course he was lying, that he's only going to go after the most violent criminals, that's not 3 million people per year. And so that's why you have so many individuals in these detention facilities who have committed no crimes. No crimes. Yari was a green card holder. There are others in these detention centers. The women that I spoke to on Saturday, none of them had committed a crime. They were either asylum seekers, they were refugees, one is married to a U.S. citizen, and that's what this administration is doing. They're going after any type of other in order to meet Donald Trump's quotas and to feed the racism and hatred of others in the base.
I've seen that there are members of Congress who haven't been allowed into these facilities. Is there anything, can they legally keep members of Congress from going in?
Legally, they cannot, and I don't know if you've seen, but many of those members have taken on a lawsuit because of this. I believe there's about a dozen members of Congress who have filed a lawsuit, which is great, and I hope that they are successful. It's very interesting, though, because we've noticed that there's no clear plan on the administration's end and DHS's end on this front. It's very random how they decide who gets in or who gets out. I mean, the fact that about a month ago I was denied access after we went above and beyond to meet standards that we shouldn't have to meet. I mean, we had notified them 7 days in advance. We had filled out privacy release forms for the individuals we wanted to meet with. And then at the final hour, the night before, it was canceled. But then this time we were let in. And, I will say I was very grateful that there was a sign-up sheet that was posted, although we did hear from all of the women that they would hide the sign-up sheet. And so word of mouth was really how people found out I was going to be there and came to talk to me. But I was grateful for that, because it's a very different experience to get the official tour and hear the talking points from ICE than to actually speak with people. And when you're hearing resounding, unanimous accounts from the women there, I believe them. So yeah, I would follow the lawsuit. And, I think it's really important for as many members of Congress as possible to keep going back to the facilities. I intend to go back as often as I can, because there's so many more people that I need to speak to. And I think just continuing to go and then being able to draw attention to certain cases is important. I don't think that I have any shot at changing this administration's mass deportation policy, but I think the bare minimum that we should be pushing for and hoping to achieve is an improvement of the conditions inside the facilities for those who have the unfortunate horror of being trapped there.
Okay, last question here.
Is any of the legislation that has been introduced or planned to be introduced get to the root of the problem, which is that these ICE agents are detaining people without any judicial warrant?
Great question. I think some of them do. I mean, we have some great leaders on the Democratic side who have been working and leading on this issue for years. You know, Congresswoman Jayapal is one that comes to mind. She's chairwoman of the subcommittee on immigration, on the Judiciary Committee. The issue, though, now is we are in the minority and we don't see Republicans. I mean, we're having a hard time getting enough Republicans to sign on to a discharge petition to release the unredacted Epstein files. So when it comes to an issue like this, I hope to see more Republicans have courage over the coming months and years as this will get worse, but it will take their leadership to even allow a bill to come to the floor.